Browns losers to the Chiefs here at Huntington Bank Field, 21-7. And of course, the big story today, Mary Kay, Jameis Winston was benched in the fourth quarter of this football game, replaced by Dorian Thompson-Robinson. And all signs are pointing to a Dorian Thompson-Robinson now taking over. Now, Kevin Stefanski wouldn't say for certain that's what would happen. Everyone was kind of keeping it mum in the locker room after the game, but it would not be a surprise if at some point this week Kevin informs us that he's making a quarterback switch.
No, it would not be a surprise at all, because he could have just kept Jameis in there for the last 8 minutes of that game. It didn't really matter. They had turned the ball over 6 times by that point. They were not going to win the football game. So he could have just left him in there. But I think the fact that he benched him points to the fact that he's ready for a change. He's ready for something different. And we asked him in the post game, was this all about the 3 interceptions? And he said unequivocally, yes. So this is definitely a move to say, we've got to stop turning the ball over. Now, of course, Dorian comes in and throws a pick himself. But still, I think they are now to the point with 3 games left where it's time to see what Dorian can do.
Yeah, it's 3 straight multiple interception games for Jameis Winston. He's thrown 12 since he took over as the starter, Ashley. And Jameis was, I think, after the game, a different type of Jameis. Again, it just felt like this is a guy that knew what was coming.
Yeah, and again, I think when we've talked about whether they should play Dorian going forward, I've even pointed to the Cincinnati game that's coming up next week as one of the good opportunities to do that. And I also wouldn't be surprised if we hear Kevin Stefanski fairly early in the week say, hey, we're going a different direction, whether that's Dorian Thompson-Robinson or even Bailey Zappi, because I think the Browns should be fully taking the week to game plan for DTR and see how it goes, because that really, in Dorian's time here, has not been something that we've seen. They've, of course, seen him more than we have in practices and things like that, but I think they should, if they choose to start Dorian, give him the whole week, make a game plan around him, let him get prepped the right amount of time, and go from there.
Now, bad injury news, unfortunately, for the Browns. Nick Chubb broke his foot in this game. His season is done. And Mary Kay, you could just, again, you can always sense it in the locker room with Nick when something bad happens to him, much like in week 2. Obviously, this is not as severe an injury as what he suffered against Pittsburgh, but guys were heartbroken, very emotional to hear that Nick Chubb, and some of them were just finding out when we were asking them about it. It definitely rattled some guys to find out that Nick Chubb, another season ending.
Yeah, most of the guys that I talked to got emotional, and most of them did not know until I informed them, which I felt bad about that. But it was very, very sad, because Nick, of course, worked so hard to come back from the knee injury, and he's in the final year of his contract. And just with the way things were going, it was a little uncertain what the future was going to hold for Nick. Now, it's really uncertain. But I thought Joel Bitonio had something great to say. He basically said, if Nick wants to come back, it's Nick Chubb. They will find a way. And I agree with that.
Yeah, this is sort of who Joel has become. He just kind of says what he wants to say. He's, we always joke about this, but he's kind of the new Joe Thomas in a lot of ways. And Ashley, this makes for a harder decision for the Browns. Maybe this is a break for the Browns too, that they can bring back Nick Chubb. It's not going to cost a lot of money and kind of keep everyone happy, while also maybe still trying to come up with a succession plan for that position.
That's exactly what I was thinking when this happened, and it's the unfortunate thing for Nick in terms of he's going to, I think, lose some money either way because of this injury regardless, because this is now 2 season-ending injuries. Obviously, as everyone basically said, like a broken foot, it's going to end his year now. It's still not going to be as severe as the basically total knee reconstruction he had to have done last year. But it's going to, I think, help the Browns in terms of keeping him around, because there's not going to be this line of teams getting ready to try to sign him. It's not going to be like Saquon Barkley was last year, right? So that might help them in their favor. But I do agree. I mean, even if the price was going to be higher for Nick, I think he just means so much to this team. You have to consider finding a way to make that work regardless.
Now, there was a scary moment in the second quarter. Myles Garrett on a pass rush, on a touchdown pass by Patrick Mahomes, went down while the play was going on, threw his helmet on the ground, dove face down on the ground. It was hard to tell what was going on. We never really see Myles Garrett stay down. We never really see something like what we saw today. So a scary moment. It turns out, Mary Kay, he was poked in the eye by Joe Thuney, who was playing left tackle today. Myles was okay. He came back, said he's a fighter. But again, We just talked about Nick Chubb and his broken foot. The last thing anyone wants to see is Myles suffer any sort of significant injury.
Yeah, that was really scary to see him writhing in pain on the field, and we didn't know why at first. And then, of course, very quickly we came to realize that he did get poked in the eye and that it was a left eye injury. But the way he looked on the ground, everyone, including one of his teammates, Obo Okoronkwo, was very frightened by what was going on with Myles Garrett. And the unfortunate thing, too, is the fact that he did not get that darn half a sack that we all thought that he would get this game to reach that coveted 100. But fortunately, he's okay.
Yeah, look, I know Patrick Mahomes didn't have a great game statistically. I know this Chiefs offense, everything just feels hard when you watch this Chiefs offense. But I think the fact that Mahomes kept running away from Myles Garrett speaks to how good he still is and all the problems he can cause. And I guess the good news here, Ashley, is Myles is going to Cincinnati next week, where he'll face Joe Burrow, who he has sacked 8.5 times in his career. So he's going to have a chance to maybe get that mark next week.
Yeah, it's one of the most successful matchups for him individually throughout his career. We know he, like you said, Dan, tends to eat going against the Bengals and down in Cincy. So hopefully he'll be able to reach that milestone next week, and it'll be at least one little glimmer or one small why that they can be playing for, because guys today talked about, playing for Nick again this year over these last 3 games. And I think that for the defensive guys, because Obo Okoronkwo talked about it, how badly he wanted Myles to get that half a sack in this game, I think they're going to be really motivated to try and get him that next week.
Okay, Browns losers here in Cleveland. We'll have full coverage of everything that happened at Huntington Bank Field, all at cleveland.com/Browns.